All right. Welcome, guys. I think we're in business. So, as you can see, the purpose of this live is basically to talk about 10 steps to autocracy, right? I'm going to share with you guys how Sierra Leone became a dictatorship, basically. That is what I want you to see, okay? Let me just make sure my sound and everything is good here. And before I start, because the other day I started off and my sound was not the best. Let me be sure. All right. Looks like my sound is good. All right. Let me be sure. Cool. All right. Looks like my sound is good. Okay. There was an echo there. But guys, I'm out. I am good now. We could go ahead and talk about this right here today, talking about dictatorship and how, Sierra Leone, became a dictatorship. Okay. That is what I want to talk about. It's the 10 steps to a dictatorship. The 10 steps that Julius Maada Bio took from since 2018 all the way through. And don't forget, this was what he wanted to do back in 1996, but because Sierra Leoneans did not allow him to do it, so of course he was not able to do it. But now, of course, he could do it. He has done it. He has succeeded to have a dictatorship, an autocracy. Basically, we have a one-party state system in Sierra Leone, but we just don't know it yet. But it's coming. It's going to happen. It's already happening in front of our eyes. And that is why, I really wanted to share this with you guys so you guys could see exactly, what we are dealing with here. All right. So this is the, 10 steps to autocracy that I'm going to discuss with you guys. This is what I'm going to talk about, with you guys. But like I said again, the first thing I'm going to do to lay the speedwork so you guys understand, now that you're coming back in, I want you guys to listen to this video first because this is the video that motivated me to do this, put this PowerPoint presentation together. Because now what I'm trying to do is just making things as easy and simple for Sierra Leoneans and Africans. Because remember, my platform is about Africa. It's not just Sierra Leone, right? Saving Africa Uncensored. I want to make sure I educate and sensitize my brothers and sisters across the continent of Africa because we want to ensure that we empower every African to know that, with the exception of few countries in Africa, but majority of these countries in Africa have dictators now, full-blown dictators. That's what you're dealing with. So I really want to make sure that you guys understand what we are actually dealing with. All right. So this is the 10 step to autocracy, and I want to share with you guys so you could see it, and then we can all be on the same page. All right. So that is what we're dealing with here, and I want you guys to, jump on the ship with me. Okay. All right. So first things first, like I said, let me play the video that I want you guys to basically see, and then we'll talk about that. Let me play the video in question here that I want you guys to see, and so you can have an idea of what I'm talking about, and then we'll take it from there. Now, this is the video. Listen to this.
10 steps to autocracy. Run us through those steps so we all know.
Okay, so this happens in every nation that has become an autocracy, having been a democracy. So whether we're talking about Brazil with Bolsonaro, or India, or Putin and Russia, the Philippines with Duterte. So start with winning an election. Usually the last one you're going to get to have for real. Number two, you have an expansion of executive power. The president decides he wants more than he's supposed to have. Number three, you start to make the Congress complicit. So you weaken them and you neutralize or neuter the judiciary. Like, the Supreme Court giving you unfettered power and saying we don't have the ability to stop things. Then you move on to firing all of the people who know how to make government work. So you gut the civil service. And you do that because you want to break democracy so people forget the stuff that used to get done. So you can't get your Social Security check. So the CDC doesn't know what diseases are anymore. Then you put in place these loyalists, people who are only responsive to you. You put them in charge of the FBI so they go after your enemies. You put them in charge of the Department of Justice, the Department of Defense, so they can signal to their friends and tell them all about the evil plans that you have. Then you make certain that you break how we communicate. So you criticize the media and you create your own echo chamber of propaganda. You call it truth even though you know you're lying. Then you go to the next step, and I call that step 7. Because at step 7, you have to blame someone. You have to blame people for the broken government, for the broken promises. So you go after DEI. You go after the vulnerable, the dispossessed. You go after any community that doesn't look like what you think power should be. While you're doing that, you make certain that in step 8, you eliminate anybody who can help them. So you sue law firms that do pro bono cases. You go after philanthropies and accuse them of giving money to the wrong people. You go after colleges and universities that can teach people possibly what else they should know. You get to step 9 and you start to encourage and incentivize private violence. You send the US Marines into spaces they should not be. You send the National Guard in. You kidnap people off of the streets and pretend that's normal, because that's how you quiet dissent, because you make everyone afraid that if they don't do what you want, they might be next. And once you've done those 9 steps, step 10 is easy. That's when you decide there won't be new elections, because everyone's either afraid, poor, broken, or complicit.
Okay. Wow. Well,
All right. So that's Stacey Adams. Stacey Abrams. I keep saying Stacey Adams because I'm thinking shoes. But anyways, Stacey Abrams. She contextualized that to America. So I'm going to contextualize this to Africa, basically, right? The context that she used was mostly geared towards what is happening in America. But I'm using this to talk about what is actually happening in Africa, because America is going to take care of itself. I'm going to focus on Africa, because Africa is where we really need our brothers and sisters to be, empowered, educated, get systems and institutions to work, have individuals with backbones. In America, we have enough of that, right? So America is going to take care of itself. We don't have to worry about America's democracy. America has built its institutions for over 200 plus 50 years. So it's going to hold. America's democracy is not going to crash. It's going to survive, right? But let's talk Africa, where we don't have democracy at all, with the exception of maybe 2 or 3 countries that are actually practicing proper democracy. So my focus is Africa. Africa, across the continent, so we can empower and bolster democracies across these various African countries. All right. So let's continue to the end of this video, so you guys could see what we're talking about. Listen to this.
of the people right now and on their television says, what is it that they can do to help avoid this and make a change in this?
Thank you. So I want to give credit to Kim Sheppel, who is a professor at Princeton. She came up with the framework. I've adapted it and potentially editorialized it more than she did. But I also want to give credit to the Robert F. Kennedy Foundation, not the lesser successor, but the real guy. We can fight back. We can remember that we do have power. They don't want dissent, so protest. They want us to forget that before we had power, we had each other. So when they break democracy, when they break the Social Security system, when they slash SNAP benefits and Medicaid, make sure you're checking on your neighbors. Make sure we're using mutual aid. But also tell the truth. Do not let the propaganda win. Too often they tell a lie. They will tell a lie so often it sounds like the truth. We say the truth one time, and when people don't applaud, we stop talking. We've got to keep telling the truth, not only to push back against them, but to remind us that we are entitled to the truth. We have to believe that freedom of assembly means it's more than just going to protest. It's the ability to be friends with people who aren't like you. And we have to stop believing that we are in this alone. The most effective thing they do is isolate us. They convince us that you and I don't have any common cause, and we certainly don't have common cause with someone who has a different history than we do. When we hold to our truth, when we actually believe in ourselves and our people, when we believe in democracy as something that must deliver, that's when we start to fight back, and that's when they lose, because they win when we are too numb or too afraid to act.
All right. You went viral.
All right, now, that's it right there. This is what I wanted to share with you guys. All right? And this is why I'm bringing this to you all. And this is the reality of what we're dealing with. And therefore, we are going to talk about the steps. And I'm going to try to share the video as we talk about the steps as well, so we can all be on the same page. Let me just make sure sound and everything is good here. And then we'll take it from there. Again, thank you as you're coming in. Make sure you share this. Don't keep it to yourself, right? Make sure you share so people learn from the stuff. We're on social media to teach one another. All right. And that is the goal. So I want to make sure here I'm testing to see what my system looks like and make sure you guys can see exactly what I'm seeing on my screen. All right. But yeah, we're going to talk about these 10 steps to autocracy. Sierra Leone is a dictatorship today. And that is where we're at. Okay. I don't want to do it this way. All right. I think I'm going to keep it this way. This is okay this way. All right, I was just making sure that what I'm seeing on the screen is what you're seeing on the screen. So it looks like we're all on the same page here. So we're gonna take this, one after the other, and I am going to what I'm going to do is go step by step, right? As you can see, this is the slides, 10 steps to autocracy, and I said how Sierra Leone became a full-blown dictatorship. Again, like I said earlier when I started, right? Wherever African country you're from, I want you to pay attention to this. All right. If you are enjoying democracy, just know that you have to, preserve your democracy, stand up for your democracy. Don't allow, a wannabe dictator come over and take over your democracy because otherwise your country is going down. And that is what has happened in Sierra Leone. Sierra Leone is a full blown dictatorship. We almost at the point where it's going to be a one party state system. It's almost there. We're getting there. They are doing everything right now to get us to the one party state system. So I want you guys to recognize that, because if you don't recognize that, you would not know what to do to ensure that you stop that in its track. And that is where we're at. So I'm going to go with step number one. All right. What is the first step to a full blown dictatorship? This is step number one. And it's important that, we all know exactly what it is. But this is step number one. This is what step number one looks like. As you can see there, it says, right there, winning an election. That is the first step, right? It's winning the election. So, for example, again, like I said, I'm going to contextualize this to Sierra Leone, right? And if you are from another African country, you go back to the last time you had credible elections. So, step number one, what did Stacey Abrams, say about step number one to a full-blown dictatorship? Let's listen to that. Listen
for
to that.
laying out 10 steps to autocracy. Run us through those steps so we all know.
Okay, so this happens in every nation that has become an autocracy, having been a democracy. So whether we're talking about Brazil with Bolsonaro, or India, or Putin and Russia, the Philippines with Duterte. So start with winning an election. Usually the last one you're going to get to have for real.
All right, so that's the first step. And that is what I'm sharing with you guys, all right? So you guys can see exactly what we're talking about. Step number one is winning an election. So what happened in Sierra Leone? Julius Maada Bio won the elections, right? In 2018, it came to power. That was the first step. And we saw the next elections after that, June 24th, 2023. Up till this day, Sierra Leoneans are still asking for the results of that elections. So it started 2018. That was the last credible, at least credible. I've heard people say a lot of things. I know, even, Silver Blyden filed a lawsuit against the 2018 elections and this and that. We've heard a lot of things, So the fact is, I'm not going to go into that because I don't want to muddy the waters, but I'm going to assume that election was the last election that we had that was a peaceful, free, and fair elections in Sierra Leone. That is what I want to assume. So step number one, winning the election. Julius Maada Bio came to power through a free and fair elections. People voted and he won the elections. He became the president. And it's from the look of things now, that was the last election that we ever had. From the look of things, that looks like the last election that we ever had. And that is the point I want to make to you guys, because that is what you guys have to see to understand exactly where we're going and what we're talking about, right? So that is the reality of what happened. Step number one, we saw how Julius Maada Bio came, won the elections, and then the next elections after that, 2023, to this day, we don't have the results of that election. So the first step to an autocracy, the first step to a dictatorship is winning an election. All right. Now, let's go to the second step. of a dictatorship, right? Let's see the second step. So that is the second step. Now let's go back to the video of Stacey Abrams telling us about the second step. Listen to this.
Number two, you have an expansion of executive power. The president decides he wants more than he's supposed to have. Number three.
All right. So number two, right? As you can see here that I've put on the screen for you guys, that's number two, expansion of executive power. Now, we saw how Julius Maada came to power, right, in 2018 and started expanding his power, right? Just doing things, whatever he wants to do. We're going to get to like the judiciary and all of that stuff, but they keep creeping in. And one thing that Sierra Leoneans always say about, elections, democracy at this point, really, it's the fact that Sierra Leoneans are saying, a constitution gives the president too much powers. That is one of the complaints that Sierra Leoneans have at this material point in time, right? Sierra Leoneans are saying that, we've given the presidency too much power in a constitution. And I say that's a lie. That's not true. Because regardless of how much power presidents have, that is why you have a parliament. That is why you have the judiciary to stop them, because these are co-equal branches of government, right? But that's the second step, expansion of executive power. And we can just see these guys just doing whatever they want to do, passing states of, emergency. We saw that happen with Julius Maada Bio passing a state of emergency back then, just doing whatever they wanted to do. And that's the second step to a dictatorship, as you can see here, right? So we are going to move on, to step number three, so you guys can see exactly what it is. But this is step number two, and now we go to step number three. Step number three is the next step there in the move towards an autocracy, which is what you're seeing on the screen here. Step number three. So let's listen to what Stacey Abrams had to say about step number three. Listen to this. Weakens parliament and they become complicit. Listen to this.
Congress complicit, so you weaken them and you neutralize or neuter the judiciary.
Okay, she jumped to the judiciary there. But I really wanted you to hear the
you start to make the Congress complicit, so you weaken them and you neutralize.
Right. So that's step number three, weakens parliament. And you all saw that, right? You all saw that. I don't even have to say much about that. Every Sierra Leonean know what happened with the parliament. The parliament is the most useless parliament that we have in Sierra Leone. And we saw how, the opposition leader in parliament, Honorable Cherno Majuba, who wants to contest now for presidency. And by the way, this guy does not even take interviews because he has no respect for Sierra Leoneans and he does not believe that he has to speak to Sierra Leoneans. But we saw that this was the guy who actually facilitated Julius Maada Bio's supremacy to this day as we have it, because as the leader of the opposition in parliament, he failed to hold Maada Bio accountable. And so when you look at weakening the parliament, what did they do? They removed 10 members of parliament. That was the first, incidents that we saw. All right. They removed 10 members of parliament and nothing. I mean, imagine, removing the representative of over 300,000 people easily, right? Removing those parliamentarians easily, and instead of conducting elections, they did not conduct elections. What did they do? They just had SLPP, folks put in place of those 10 members of parliament that were removed from APC in parliament. So you weaken the parliament because the opposition had the majority in parliament. So what did Julius Maada Bio do? They say, hey, let's get rid of these 10 members of parliament. They violated laws. Therefore, because they violated those laws, we are going to, just do whatever we want to do, and remove these 10 members of parliament. And, we saw that happen in Sierra Leone. And that was the issue that, if you remember, if anybody remembers, this video, this was one of the videos where, Kande Yumkela you know,
I said that I
and
agree totally with
Cherry
Dr. Benjamin
Coco.
Keller, so I will not be repeating most of what he said, but I agree with all what he did say. But I also want to add that the neck that will be taking us to 2023 as it is, all the five or so commissioners are going to be new kids in the block, none of them with experience. We have a new chairman, a new commissioner south.
But yeah, so wanted to share that with you guys. But just so you know, you have an idea of what I'm talking about as it relates to, Parliament, being neutered as the point number three, on the steps to weakening, becoming a dictatorship or an autocracy, right? Weakens Parliament and they become complicit. So we saw them removing 10 members of Parliament, and that was the beginning and the demise of democracy. So if we go back to Stacey Abrams on this video, let's listen to this. Number three.
Civilize or neuter the judiciary. Like, oh, I don't know, the Supreme Court giving you unfettered power and saying we don't have the ability to stop things.
All right. So this is step number four. That's what Stacey Abrams is talking about here. Step number four, captures and neutralizes the judiciary, right? That's step number four. That is how dictatorships are born. So you look at that, we saw what happened in Sierra Leone, right? The judiciary is a piece of crap in Sierra Leone. We've seen the judiciary pass the PR violating the constitution, even though we have section 38A, which was only added to the constitution to make an amendment because in 1996, when we had the elections, because of the rebel war, the government at the time, which was of course Julius Maada Bio's regime, after he overthrew Strasser, we could not access everywhere in Sierra Leone because of the war. There were certain areas where the rebels were still occupying. So we could not conduct a constituency-based elections. So we had to do the PR system. That was how the PR was proposed. And it was not even part of the constitution at the time. So later on, the constitution was amended to suit, the PR, right? And what happened at that point? We saw how, Julius Maada Bio came now with the help of the judiciary to use the proportional representation system in the 2023 elections just so they can steal the elections away from our people. The thresholds for who gets what, how many seats, all of that was not even properly tabulated and calculated. But, the judiciary, we've seen it in Sierra Leone, it's useless. We see how the judiciary is jailing and locking up opposition figures. Zainab Sharif currently is being locked up. Why? Because she said that we should pass a law that anyone who steals elections in Sierra Leone should be killed. And not only that, they should kill the family, mother, father, children, the whole bloodline. That is the proposal Zainab Sharif made. We've seen Francis Baikai Fala saying that anyone who's caught in corruption, for the kinds of money that are being stolen, they should implement the death penalties, calling on parliament. The same thing that Zainab Sharif did, call on parliament. We've seen the current illegal deputy minister of information say that if it's for him, APC should die. We've seen all of these guys saying these things, but the judiciary would not go after the SLPP because we have an autocracy. We have a one-party state system, which is what you guys don't see. And that is why I'm telling you guys exactly what is actually happening. And we have a one-party state system. What we have is an autocracy, and we don't have we don't have a democracy anymore. The judiciary has been neutralized by Julius Maada Bio. The judges are all tribal. Majority of the judges are Mendes. If you look across the country, that is what is actually happening. So that is how the step number four to a dictatorship, and we've already passed all of these. I might be late saying this now, but I'm not really late because I've been calling and we've been calling the attention of you guys to what is actually happening in Sierra Leone so we can stop this guy. But unfortunately, like I said again, the opposition, they would always come out with videos and be like, oh man, I'm the strong guy and this and that. The whole time they were playing us. They know what they were doing. They were helping Julius Maada Bio achieve his ultimate desire of rigging elections, capturing the state. We saw how they killed citizens across that country. The judiciary did nothing about it, right? The prosecutions for the McKinney massacre, the people that were killed at McKinney, the Padeba Road prison massacre, the judiciary has done nothing. Nobody has been prosecuted by the judiciary. The judiciary is only there to go after the opposition. That is an autocracy. That is a one-party state system. That is a dictatorship because you cannot punish your own people. You only punish the other side. And that is how autocracies are born. And that is what we have in Sierra Leone today. And we see it every day. Again, classic case ongoing right now is Zainab Sharif being held, because she's proposing a law that should asking that we kill anyone who's stealing elections, depriving 8+ million people of their rights to their sanctified, blessings of voting. They stole the elections from the people, 80+ million people, and till this day we don't have the results. And Zainab Sharif is saying, anyone who rigs elections should be killed, and the family line should be wiped out from Sierra Leone. That is what every Sierra Leonean is asking for at this particular point in time, because nobody wants to go vote, and your election results is not counted. So we see the judiciary is going after Zainab. It is a weapon. That is an autocracy. It is the weapon used to go after Zainab Sharif and anybody else that questions them. If the opposition says Marabio stole the election, you'll be arrested, because the judiciary is there for the opposition only. It's there for the other side. It's there for the rest of us, and we are a lot more than them. But because we've allowed them to keep going and doing this, so they keep doing it, and that is the problem that we have, and that is where we're at, and that is why it's important for us to talk about these things, so that we continue to educate you guys, and so we can all be on the same page. But that is the situation we're dealing with. And like Stacey Abrams said here, step number 4 captures and neutralizes the judiciary. Let us go on to step number 5, so we can all be on the same page. That's what step number 5 is, right? Firing all the people, civil servants that know how to make government work. That is the step right there that is taken, as you can see. So if I go ahead again and show you this video, listen to this, step number 5.
Then you move on to firing all of the people who know how to make government work. So you gut the civil service. And you do that because you want to break democracy so people forget the stuff that used to get done. So you can't get your Social Security check. So the CDC doesn't know what diseases are anymore.
Right? So step number 5, right? That's what Stacey Abrams is pointing out. Firing all the people, civil servants that know how to make government work. There are videos out there where we saw how people were getting fired by their last names, right? Tribalism, and all of these stuff happened in Sierra Leone. So step number 5, when Julius Marabio came, what did he do? Cleaned up, fired people at random. Everybody was being fired, right? We saw videos where they were firing staff across the country. Statistics Sierra Leone, we saw a video that was playing around on social media, where they were calling people by their last names and sacking them, right? So these are all the things that actually happened towards step number 5 in Sierra Leone. Fire all the people that know what to do, and then that way, matter of fact, let me show you guys that video to make it easy for you guys. I want to show you guys that video. Check this out. This is the video where they were firing people, calling them by their last names.
Salut Mansare. Abadu Bori. Bori.
See, make a collector for her.
No. Maso Kabara. Maso. Sera Kodema. What's your code?
Yes. Besides, they receive me letter now from the HR.
Umaru Kanu.
This is my letter
Umaru Kanu.
of termination of contract. SSL.
Alpha Somali Kote. Alpha Somali Kote. Edward Bangura.
That's what we put.
Edward Bangura.
Termination.
Mohamed Kago.
So you guys get the point. You get the point that I'm making, right? So this is here, step number 5. What you do, you fire all the people, and that's what we saw Julius Marabio did, right? Immediately they came to power, they started cleaning up all the ministries, departments, agencies, firing everybody, especially if you're a Northerner, right? With a Northerner name, you get fired. That was how, step number 5 towards autocracy. That is how it happens. And this is not only the case of Sierra Leone. You can check your own country, wherever you're from in Africa. It's the same thing that happened to your country. Step number 5. You all know somebody who got fired, lost their jobs until this day. A lot of those people have not been able to find a job. So people are struggling, because we all know in Africa, if you don't, it's politics is the only way you survive. For a lot of people, without political affiliation, without your political party in office, you suffer. And that is what is actually happening in Sierra Leone right now. So, step number 5 was firing all the people, civil servants that know how to make government work. All of these people have been fired, they've been cleaned up in the system. So, Marabio takes control of these institutions. That way, whatever it wants to get done would get done. And all the benefits would be taken away from you, like your civil society, your civil service benefits and all of that. So all the people that know how government works, they fire those people. And that's why we have the incompetence that we have. Because when you look at how Julius Maada came to power, transition of power wasn't smooth. It was rugged. They didn't even allow for a flow of transition properly, right? It just came in and kicked everybody out, gutted the system, because again, that's how you compensate your brothers. That's how you compensate your tribesmen, right? When you come to power, you have to compensate your tribesmen. Now, so what you do is you kick them out. You kick everybody else out. Bring your tribesmen. It's your time. It's your turn. Everybody has to come and feast. Everybody has to come and eat. That's what happened with the Julius Barabio situation. So we all saw that. And that is what step number 5 is talking about. Firing all the people, especially civil servants, that know how to make government work, right? We saw that. So if we go to step number 6, let's take a look at step number 6 here, right? You put in place loyalists. So when you fire everybody else, you put in place loyalists. Let's listen to Stacy.
Then you
Let's
put
listen
in
to Stacey.
place these loyalists, these people who are only responsive to you. You put them in charge of the FBI so they go after your enemies. You put them in charge of the Department of Justice, the Department of Defense, so they can signal to their friends and tell them all about the evil plans that you have.
All right. So you see, step number 6, right? Once you fire everybody, then obviously the next step is to put in place the loyalists. So in Sierra Leone today, you have a bunch of incompetent people. The only reason why they're qualified for a lot of these positions is because they are from the southeast. They are Mendes, and this is the SLPP. They fought for SLPP, so SLPP is in power. It's compensation time. We hear this guy. You see them, like the song of Emerson, Munku Boss Pamachis kind of situation. That is what we have in Sierra Leone now. And we've seen this going on because every political party, especially these two main political parties, it's about tribal affiliations. Even though former President Ernest Koroma, I think the biggest mistake he made, which is not a mistake, it's a good thing, to have a all-encompassing government, right? An inclusive government. So he did not pick and choose. If you were competent for the position, it did not matter what your tribe is. So we saw a lot of these guys, especially in the Ministry of Finance, a lot of Southeasterners, Mende guys, were dominating the South, the finance department, right? So step 6, put in place loyalists. So former President Nkrumah did not look at that, but Marabio, it's about the loyalists. It's about the boys whilst he was in London. A lot of these guys were security. Nothing against my brothers that are security guards, right? But if being a security guard is what's going to qualify you to become a minister, now we have a problem, right? Because your expertise and experience doesn't go that far enough. And hence the reason we have the incompetence. Because somebody's a security officer, of course, they're good for, security, a job. So if somebody was a security officer at a certain level, and then became maybe Minister of Internal Affairs, or, we can understand. But when you start having some of these guys at the highest levels of government that we're not doing anything serious, no proper job. These guys were not institutionalized overseas. For a lot of them that came overseas, you have these little boys that had no practical experience. They were in school the whole time, and now government is in, and now they are occupying positions within governments. Little boys that have no experience, they've never supervised anybody, have no administrative skills. All they were doing was going to school, and now power is in their hands. So you put in place loyalists. So these are the little boys that Julius Marabio would use as to say, these are the ones that are going to replace me when I'm gone, because for everything I've done, I know that if I let go of this power, the ones coming in, they will actually deal with me. So what am I going to do? I'm going to find some little boys that I can, put in positions of authority so they can succeed me and take over from me. That is what is actually happening in Sierra Leone, So we've seen that, and then they start blaming someone for the broken government. Now they've put all these loyalists in place. Nothing is working. Systems are broken down. And the people that have the experience that know what to do are no longer there. They're no longer available to do these jobs so that they can meet the needs of the people and take care of the ministries, the departments, and agencies. They start to blame their predecessors. Oh, it was those ones. It wasn't us. Oh, it was that one. You know, as you can see what's happening in Sierra Leone, everything is they blame the APC. They forget that the people voted out APC so that, you know, they can come and fix what the APC could not fix. But 7 years later, which for the last 3 years they've been illegally occupying office, 7 years later, it's the same complaints. Nothing has changed, and they keep complaining about the fact that it's APC. So we see that this is the reality of what is actually happening in Sierra Leone. So that's step number 6 for you. You put in place loyalists. That is what we've seen. You know, all the loyalists in all institutions, all the ministries, all the departments, all the agencies. Go and do an audit check today in Sierra Leone. 98% of the ministries, departments, and agencies are all occupied and headed by Southeasterners and Mendays, to be specific, right? So you put loyalists in place, and then, you know, you find these little boys that have no administrative skill, no experience, you know, did not institutionalize themselves. All they were doing was going to school, going to school, going to school, you know, and then all of a sudden, here is power. What are they going to do? They're going to abuse it. They're going to misuse it because they don't have the gravitas, what it takes to understand how institutions work. So they have no respect for the institutions. They have no respect for citizens because they did not earn those positions. Those positions were just by virtue of, again, I belong to the SLPP, again, because I belong to the Southeast, or again, because I'm a Mende, you know. So that is how, you know, step number 6 comes into play, you know. So we've seen that. So if we go to step number 7, you know, of course they start blaming, which I've talked about, right? They start to blame, you know, others. And let's take a look at this.
Then
Blame people.
you make certain that you break how we communicate. So you criticize the media.
Okay, so we've discussed step 6 and 7. Of course, blame someone, which I'm talking about. They keep blaming the APC. So we're on to step 8. Actually, eliminate anyone that can help. You know, the people. No, I see what happened here. All right. So yeah, but that's okay. Eliminate anyone that can help. If you
And
let's
you create
listen
your
to
own
this.
echo chamber of propaganda. You call it truth, even though you know you're lying. Then you go to the next step, and I call that step 7. Because at step 7, you have to blame someone. You have to blame people for the broken government, for the broken promises. So you go after DEI. You go after the vulnerable, the dispossessed. You go after any community that doesn't look like what you think power should be.
All right. So that's step number 7. We've seen that. Right? Like I said, blame someone for the broken government. Everything is the previous government, right? They never take responsibility for their actions, right? Everything they are correct. They never apologize. They just keep doubling down, doubling down, doubling down, right? That is what is actually happening in Sierra Leone. So that's what you see in step number 7. You know, continue to just blame everyone but themselves. They would never take accountability for their actions because they believe that they are correct. They are doing everything right. Everybody else does not know what they're talking about, right? You see that in Sierra Leone. So that is why we have an autocracy. That is why we have a dictatorship. That is why we have a one-party state system in Sierra Leone at this particular point in time. That is why Julius Maada is now a full-blown dictator because he has gotten past all of these steps. He has succeeded, and the opposition has not been able to stop him in his tracks, so that we could challenge the status quo, right? And we've seen that play out again and again and again. Blame someone. You got to find somebody to put the blame on. You're incompetent, but you can, instead of addressing the issue and asking people who know more than you, and seeking the advice or seeking the services or the expertise or the experience of those that know more than you, they wouldn't do that. You know, they rather just blame everybody else for the problem, and they continue to lie about the issues. You know, I saw a video that I shared on my Facebook here recently, where the former Minister of Internal Affairs, Lai Lawrence Lima, was saying that they came and met Rice at 650,000 leones when Rice was 200,000 leones in 2018 when they took over, right? So it is either it was a slip of the mind, forgot, or it's intentional for them to lie about these things because, again, they don't want to show their incompetence to say that, you know, we brought Rice up to 650,000. I think within 6 months of them being in power, right? So Matter of fact, I could share that video. I could share that video that I'm talking about because it is the most recent video that I
Paying for a bag of rice at 200,000 from only 60,000 in 2002.
You get it? If you don't get it, forget about it.
listen to this video that this young lady is gonna play.
Shameless don't cover una. But before we talk anything, don't watch this other video first.
To that price. When we come, I think we don't. This government don't try for reverse the price of a bag of a rice to that price we meet at.
So now that message they for go to the people them.
To that price we meet at. We meet rice not about 650,000 years. We will meet
under IPC.
Yeah, we will take over.
2080
we will take. No. We meet rest.
200.
No. 650,000.
So you see, so the guys just had to laugh at him basically right on there, right? Because that is what they do when you have a dictatorship. This is what they do. They'll keep lying and lying and lying and lying. That is the reality of what we're dealing with. So as you can see here, step number 7, blame someone for the broken government. That is what they do. Keep blaming the APC, right? Keep blaming the previous government. They forget that the people put them there to fix the problems that the previous government could not fix. And but they forget that completely and start going after them. Keep blaming, keep blaming. So that's step number 7. And let's go to step number 8. Let's see what step number 8 sounds like. All right. Step number 8.
You go after any community that doesn't look like what you think power should be. While you're doing that, you make certain that you, in step 8, you eliminate anybody who can help them. So you sue law firms that do pro bono cases. You go after philanthropies and accuse them of giving money to the wrong people. You go after colleges and universities that can teach people possibly what else they should know. You get.
All right. So you guys see that. All right. That's step number 8 right there. All right. So like she's saying, like what I'm doing now, right? I am a big target for the SLPP. Why? Because I'm speaking up. I'm passing on the little education that I have when it comes to civic education, right? I'm sharing that with Sierra Leoneans. So no, they don't want that. So the goal is to eliminate anyone, right? You know, Zainab Sharif currently right now. Why is she being eliminated? She's being pushed aside, locked up unconstitutionally and illegally for proposing a law that would benefit every Sierra Leonean basically and would benefit Sierra Leone as a whole in totality, right? But they would eliminate anyone who speaks up. You have brothers like Thomas Babadi, right? If Thomas Babadi comes out and speak up, you know, they would attack Thomas Babadi. Listen to Thomas Babadi.
I've observed election in Ghana, in Kenya, when Uhuru Kenyatta won his second term, in Liberia, in Nigeria. Observe those elections. I've never seen or heard that elections were announced in West Africa within 3 days.
Sorry about that. My wife just came in. My Bluetooth connected to her vehicle. Let me cut off the Bluetooth.
You have to be careful. People died for democracy. People were killed, slaughtered, amputated. Buildings broke down for democracy, not for independence. Ask any other individual, not for. We had independent cheap.
Why you
Here, we had it cheap.
Why
it was an advocacy. They went to Lancaster House, agreed, disagree. They came back.
So, of course, you all know Babadi was recently, you know, locked up and arrested, you know, because, of course, he's asking for the elections of the June 24th, 2023. It was locked up recently. You guys know all about that. So step number 8, that's how you have dictatorship. That's how you have autocracy, which we have in Sierra Leone currently. Eliminate anyone that can help the people with civic education or any other. So professors across Sierra Leone, right? They've been silenced. You cannot speak up. You know, imams, pastors. You've seen civil society organizations where, of course, the imams, the pastors, the clergy, these are all people, you know, that are, you know, should protect citizens, right? But they've all been neutered. They've all been silenced. Nobody can speak up. Nobody can say anything. Because if you're an imam and you say something, you can be harassed, pastor, whatever the case is, right? The journalists, of course, journalists cannot speak up. You know, the journalists are the ones that are playing footsie. They're the ones that are actually defending, you know, the Julius Marabios dictatorial regime. The journalists are the one playing, you know, at the gate. if you come and say anything, no, 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 you cannot say that. No, 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 you cannot say that here. You cannot say that here. We've seen how, these journalists are dealing with politicians in their studios. We recently saw, the case of, this guy where, this journalist was telling him, you cannot say that here. You cannot say that here. You cannot say that here. You guys have all seen those videos. Let me play that for you so you can see. Listen to
Somebody
this.
called me yesterday while they laugh, Nanette. He said, but Paris, come up here this audit report. He said, this audit report, all the hand we pass. He said, most of the hand we pass, now the hand they support chief minister for a presidential bid. So it shows clearly, say, it is not a performance.
That's a huge allegation,
So
Honorable KK.
You see that? That's the journalist there. The step number 8: eliminate anyone that could teach people, or so free speech is being threatened. Step number 8: see that? Eliminate anyone that can help the people with civic education. Of course, not that I'm giving credit to this guy right here, right? But let's continue to listen to this video.
Okay. I just import it and tell me.
No, but you can't say that because if a whole chief minister, they monitor a performance contract.
You see how she had to emphasize a whole chief minister, right? That is what is actually happening, because again, the system has been captured so much that the journalists are afraid of the repercussions for their actions. If they don't check these people, which is none of their business, of course, if they don't check them, their stations will be shut down, they will be fined, they will be taken off air. Because you have a dictatorship, you have an autocracy, you have someone who's controlling everything. So they're not free. So even when somebody is expressing their own opinion about facts, about what they feel about certain things, no, they have to, oh no, you cannot say that here. You cannot, not that, they have nothing else to counter what the man said, but you just cannot say stuff. That's the bottom line. You cannot say it, So that is what is actually happening. So listen to this. Listen to this.
Listen. You cannot say now Uda they support in presidential. No, that's not hearsay. You can't say it here, please. You can't say it here, please. You can't say it here, please.
Not all things okay.
No.
Okay, you get something for proof that.
No, make me say what you can say now, so they say.
Please. Well, let's not, yes.
All right. So that is the situation that we have. Basically, right? Eliminates anyone that can help the people with civic education. So even though a sitting member of parliament, which you guys just watched, is a sitting member of parliament there, molested by a host, a so-called journalist in Sierra Leone. Because again, step number 8, that's what it is, right? Anyone that is going to come out and speak up. Again, like I said, I'm not giving cover to this guy, by the way, so you all know. This Honorable AKK, these are the guys that were all in parliament when, their leader was sitting there not doing anything, and we don't see what they did. They all talk, but nothing else after that. It's just talk, blah, 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 and the system continues. The status quo continues. Julius Marabio gets away with everything, anything that he wanted. So these are the same guys that were in the parliament since 2018 up until 2023, and they said, it's done and dusted. We're going to move on to the next elections, instead of them standing up for their victory that they had June 24th, 2023. So no credits to the so-called Honorable AKK, the guy that was molested at the station, as you saw. But that is step number 8. In the case of how dictatorships are born, right? That is step number 8. So let's go back, and track with Stacy here and see where we're going.
Into spaces they should not be. You send the National Guard in. You kidnap people off of the streets and pretend that's normal, because that's how you quiet dissent, because you make everyone afraid that if they don't do what you want, they might be next. And once you've done those 9 philanthropies and accuse them of giving money to the wrong people,
all right,
you go after colleges and universities that can teach people possibly what else they should know. You get to step 9 and you start to encourage and
all right. So let's see step 9.
Accuse them of giving money to the wrong people. You go after colleges and universities that can teach people possibly what else they should know. You get to step 9 and you start to encourage and incentivize private violence. You send the U.S. Marines into spaces they should not be. You send the National Guard in. You kidnap people off of the streets and pretend that's normal, because that's how you quiet dissent.
Yep. So we all see that. Sure. But yeah, so step number 9, guys, that's what you're seeing on the screen right here, right? That is how you do it. That is how you quiet dissent, right? So step number 9, you send the police. We've seen that. Incentivize private violence. We've seen Sata Lamin, a young lady was raped, in Kailahun, Nyandihun village. Why was she raped? By SLPP thugs. They said, okay, because you were supporting the APC, we have come to rape you. And you all know about the story of Sata Lamin, where this guy, they put their hands, 7 men, they raped her. Not only did they rape her, they took their hands and put it in a private part. They put their hands in a vagina and removed a womb. And they poured sand into a private part. And then they tied rope around her neck and walked with her along the village. And everybody was watching her. They dragged her like a goat. It happened in Sierra Leone. So incentivize, private violence against perceived enemies using tribesmen or the military, etc. Right? We see it in Sierra Leone every day. That is what is actually happening. And that is step number 9. And that is the reality of what we see happening in Sierra Leone. So all of these steps have been taken by Julius Maada Bio, and hence the reason why we have a dictatorship today. This is why we have an autocracy today. This is why we have a one-party state system today, because it is only Julius Maada Bio who's controlling the reins of authority and power. Opposition, they're useless. They know, Julius Maada Bio knows they're not going to do anything other than yap, and blow smoke all day. It knows that fact. It knows they're going to yap, but whatever he wants to do, he's going to do it. Nothing is going to stop him. So it's just the facade of saying we have a democracy when we really don't have a democracy. So that is the reality of what we're dealing with. So when you look at this, step number 9, incentivize private violence. We've seen, people, we saw the case of Michael Maba Mansare, in Bo, where vigilantes would just go to your house and pick you up from your house, and because you said something about them. Michael Maba Mansare, the sin that he committed was because he said that, Anes Kroma was the one who built the stadium at Bo. You guys know all of this stuff. I don't want to keep going back and forth playing videos because it takes away my time and I'm trying to round up here. You know what I mean? But this is the reality of what is actually happening. If you have those videos, you can release them. I have them. I will share them on my WhatsApp channel, later on, but that's step number 9 for you. That's what happens, incentivize violence across the country. So we saw that. We saw that, the violence is perpetrated against Northwesterners, and Northerners. Other than that, nothing is done. Nobody's prosecuted. We saw that when the SLPP came to power initially. We saw that during, what was that, COVID. We saw how the military treated the people. Private violence. We saw women, getting raped and abused. We saw where women protested, how they were dealt with. We saw people pointing neighbors across Sierra Leone. And the government was actually aiding that, pointing citizens. They're pointing citizens, say, this one protested, that one. So SLPP, Julius Maada Bio, they incentivize those kinds of private violence against other citizens because they consider them enemies. They're not on the same side. So that's step number 9 in the fight. And how we've gotten to the place where we've gotten today. So if you're from Africa, relate this from your various country, how you got to step number 9. You can see it unfold in front of your eyes because the same pattern is what all of these dictators across Africa have. They've been doing the same thing. They all go by the same playbook at the end of the day. So in Sierra Leone, that's what you saw. Step number 9 here. Incentivize private violence against your perceived enemies using tribesmen or the military or vigilantes and stuff like that, right? We all saw that in real time. So Stacy is saying that's how it is. Let's see step number 10.
You make everyone afraid that if they don't do what you want, they might be next. And once you've done those 9 steps, step 10 is easy. That's when you decide there won't be new elections because everyone's either afraid, poor, broken, or complicit.
Okay. Wow. Well,
so that's it right there for you guys. That's it right there. So step number 10, as you can see on the screen here, and that's what she's talking about. We might not even have elections anymore. If we do have elections, it's a facade because these guys, they predetermine the outcome of the elections even before the election day. We saw that in June 24th, 2023. So the last elections that we really had, which was a good election, was 2018. 2023, up till this day, we don't have the results of that elections. That is the reality. And that is how these guys roll. This is how they do what they do. And now you've seen it in front of your eyes. Step 10, that's where we're at. We're already in a full-blown dictatorship. Because now people are afraid. People are silent. People cannot speak up no more because all the way through step 1 up until 9 is to crush dissent. Sierra Leoneans are afraid to protest today. Nobody can protest in Sierra Leone. Nobody can protest in Sierra Leone. So those are the steps that they took to ensure that they silence everybody. And that is why I'm here. And that is why you have few Sierra Leoneans that are here. We're doing what we do to continue to speak up about these, atrocities that are actually going on. And we are the good ones. We are the good citizens. We are the ones that are preserving democracy. We are the ones that are standing up to make sure that democracy thrives, because when democracy thrives, the people are empowered. Because again, power belongs to the people. Democracy in itself says, it's the power of the people, for the people, and by the people. That is what true democracy is all about. So we have to ensure that we stand by the principles of democracy. That is why I'm at this gate. So we're at step 10. Elections are rigged from this point on. The dictator has to stay in power, because otherwise he knows that once he loses power, we're going to come after him. So what's going to happen? That pattern continues. So until the people stand up. And that is why I'm going now to the next steps. How do we fight back, right? How do we fight back? Let's listen to our sister here. Listen to this.
While you have the ear of the people right now and on their television sets, what is it that they can do to help avoid this and make a change in this?
Thank you. So I want to give credit to Kim Sheppel, who is a professor at Princeton. She came up with a framework. I've adapted it and potentially editorialized it more than she did. But I also want to give credit to the Robert F. Kennedy Foundation, not the lesser successor, but the real guy. We can fight back. We can remember that we do have power. They don't want dissent. So,
all right. So that's what she's proposing now. So let's see what we have here, right? We can fight back. We can fight back. All right. So what can we do? It's the next steps. What can we do? What can we do? This is it right here. What can you do to avoid and stop a dictatorship? That is where we're at. We can fight back. All right. How do we fight back? Listen to this.
Protest. They want us to forget that before we had power, we had each other. So when they break democracy, when they break the Social Security system, when they slash SNAP benefits and Medicaid, make sure you're checking on your neighbors. Make sure we're using mutual aid. But also tell the truth. Do not let the propaganda win. Too often they tell a lie.
Exactly.
They will.
Exactly. That is a fact. So this is how we fight back, right? Protest is one. Don't forget, we've always had protest in the books. It's in the Constitution. For Sierra Leone, it's Section 25, subsection 1. Section 26, subsection 1. Section 25, it talks about your rights to free speech. Section 26 talks about your rights to protest and assembly and association, right? So don't forget we have that in the books. But today in Sierra Leone, you would see how folks in the APC would tell you, oh no, let us don't protest because we have them right where we want. We don't want them to do anything, because protest to them is like a violence now. They don't believe in protest anymore. And that's what dictatorships do. They squeeze down voices of dissent. They want to stop you from protesting. And they've succeeded in Sierra Leone. Sierra Leoneans cannot protest today. No opposition leader born of a woman in Sierra Leone can call for a protest. We've seen that in real time. It is happening in front of our eyes. So that is the truth. So the first thing we can do to fight back, as you can see here, how do we fight back? The first step is to make sure that we remember that we protest, right? You see that right there. And the second step is to tell the truth, which is what I'm doing, right? I'm telling the truth. I'm telling you guys exactly what it is. I'm speaking the truth to you so you know exactly what's going on. I keep speaking up about it. I produce the evidence. I give you the fact. Bless me. Thank you. I keep giving you the facts so you know that, hey, you're standing up for the right thing. You're doing the right thing, and they because what they try to do is to divide us. So they isolate us. They bring us, tribe, partisan, regional, they divide us amongst those lines, right? Hey, don't forget, don't worry about it. You're Mende. This is our political party. You're from the Southeast. Stay with us. Don't come on. Don't join them. They divide us like along, tribal lines, along political party lines, along regional lines. That is what they do. So they divide us amongst each other, right? So we cannot be able to come together because once they divide us, we are conquered, right? And then we cannot be able to stand up. They win when we become numbed, as you can see here. That is the truth. They win when we become too numbed or afraid to act. And in Sierra Leone, sadly, today, that is what it is. Sierra Leoneans have become numbed to their suffering. They've become numbed to the pain, and they cannot act anymore. Sierra Leoneans cannot speak up for themselves anymore, especially those that are in Sierra Leone. They cannot stand up anymore. The opposition has been neutered. Even the opposition, they just go around because, again, Julius Matabio is still in the infancy of his dictatorship because it's going to get to a point where these guys will not even have platforms to go to and talk. Right? It's going to get there. But for now, you see them going all around all these little platforms, YouTube platforms and stuff, yapping, blowing smoke, But yeah, Sierra Leoneans as a populace, the people themselves in Sierra Leone today, they cannot speak up anymore. They cannot say anything. We saw what happened to Zainab Sharif. If you speak up, you'll be arrested. And then you'd have Sierra Leoneans coming by and telling you that, oh, you shouldn't have said that. I don't support what Zainab Sharif said. When there is nothing wrong with what the lady said. Like I said, I've played videos for you guys. You can go through my Facebook page of SLPP people. Francis Benkai Fala, who is their current illegal ACC commissioner. This guy is saying Parliament should propose a law, is proposing to Parliament that they should pass a law for death penalty for anyone caught in corruption. We've seen the deputy minister, current illegal minister of information, saying if it's for him, he does not want APC to be alive. APC is a political party that has over 80% support base in Sierra Leone. So if you're saying if it's for you, you want APC to die, I mean, come on now. Those kinds of statements. Is the PPRC going to investigate that? Is the judiciary going to get this man arrested? Is the police going to arrest him? But no, because we have a dictatorship, because we have an autocracy, what's happening is they don't arrest their own people. They only arrest the other side because everybody else that is not with them, you're against them. And therefore, when you say stuff, they just, all it has to sound like is like you're going after them. And that's all they see. They lead with their emotions. They don't lead, they lead with their ego. So nobody else can say anything. Even what I'm saying right now, they hear it, they know it's the facts, they know it's the truth, but to them it sounds like insult. To every SLPP watching this, it sounds like insults to them because they don't believe in democracy. They don't believe in the other side being able to speak freely. They came to power through democracy, but they are erasing everything that has to do with democracy. And sadly, Sierra Leonean citizens today in Sierra Leone, individually, cannot say anything, cannot speak up against the government because if they dare, they will be dealt with accordingly. And I saw a video, yesterday that was shared to me by Mr. Imran. Oh, shucks. I have my disappearing. So that video is disappeared. Jeez. Oh, man. I'm so sorry. Brother Imran, if you hear this, you can send me that video again of the pregnant woman at Aberdeen that was kicked out of the hospital. I don't know if you guys have seen that video. But the family members cannot come out and say anything. They who dare them to come out and say anything about that? So Sierra Leoneans are being taken advantage of, they're being abused, and they cannot speak up. That's the reality of what is actually happening. But yeah, this is the truth. This is the situation that we have. Don't forget, you can fight back with protests. You have to keep telling the truth. Don't let them divide us, and don't become numbed to where you become afraid to act. And that is where Sierra Leone is at today. Sierra Leoneans are afraid. They've become numbed. They're dealing with the poverty, the pain, the struggle. They are beating them, killing them. They cannot act because they cannot act anymore. They've been defeated systematically over time, and that's what it is. But I want to thank you guys. Make sure you share this with your friends. Thank you all for joining me. We're going to keep speaking up. And that's the only way we're going to have the country and Sierra Leone that we need, okay? So remember, you can always fight back. Don't allow Julius Matabio and the SLPP to succeed with the dictatorship that we have in Sierra Leone. You have a responsibility to stand up and speak up. If you're a civil society organization watching this, you've been beaten down by the system, stand up again. If you're an imam, pastor, you're seeing the wrong things that are happening, stand up again, speak up for your democracy. Don't allow autocracy to take hold. Don't allow a dictatorship to take hold in your country. Sierra Leone is the only country that you have. We already have a brutal rebel war. We've had a brutal rebel war, and we saw how it affected everybody. We don't want to go down that path, because when you have a dictatorship like we have in Sierra Leone, the only other option that people have is a rebellion. And we all know what happens when people rebel in a nation. And we are a lot more than them. We are a lot more than them. It's only a handful of them, and we don't want that to happen. That is why people like myself keep speaking up to get these guys to say, hey, listen, we're a lot more than you. One day the people will stand up. But they've believed in the Julius Matabio regime, this illegal regime. They believe at this point that they've actually neutered, the people. They believe that. They strongly believe that they've finished the people, and there is nothing, the people can do. They strongly believe that. So, but let us not give up, guys. Let's keep speaking up. Let's keep pointing out these things and save our democracy. Fight back, fight back, fight back. Don't forget, you have the rights to fight back. You can do it. And when we do it, we can win. And we will win. That's how we do it. All right? So again, bye-bye, everybody. Have a beautiful one. Have a nice evening and share. Bye-bye.